Welcome to the EOB Podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Ben-Hur, and joining me is Sen Dong. Hey Sen, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Kind of a boring week.
It is, but we'll get to that. I just want to give you an update that my jet lag is much better. Remember I went on a trip in the last couple of weeks where I went out of the country and came back, and here we are back to our regularly scheduled podcast.
Right.
And as you say, a relatively quiet weekend, and I think mostly because we forgot what month we're in.
Yeah, we're in August. Well, towards the tail end of August, it's the...
Which is always bad. I mean, it's kind of like the month where studios just dump their movies, as we've seen with the box office performance of the new releases last weekend.
I wouldn't say the end of August is a bad month. I think starting September is a bad month.
Well, we're getting there.
We're getting close. So... I mean, we're still seeing the top 5 or 6 films grossing over 10 million. In the months of September and October, sometimes films grossing, 5 or 6 million can be the number one movie.
Okay.
So we're not quite there yet. The end of summer the end of August usually have some pretty big openings. In the past, they always reserve, a couple of their blockbusters, like the rush hour films, Guardians of the Galaxy, or, even the Bourne movies have been reserved for late August. But yeah, this last week, compared to, the 50 or 60 million dollar openings that we're used to seeing, this is kind of a quiet week, which is good because, since you're recovering from your jet lag, we'll need that energy to...
Right. Okay, how about we jump right in?
All right, sure.
To the number one movie of the weekend. It's Suicide Squad. It pulled in 20.7 million in its third weekend.
Number one again.
Yeah, number one again. It's the third time at the number one spot, and so far it made 262 million at the domestic box office, and worldwide it's at 572 million.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not dropping off as badly as we had originally thought when it first opened, because of the poor reviews and average cinema score. Sure, it's dropping off by 52%, which isn't great or even good, but it's kind of, mediocre.
Yeah, but I have to say that it benefited from, weak competition.
Yeah, that's true. The only demographic that is hitting it is Ben-Hur, and we'll get to it. Ben-Hur kind of bomb.
Big, huge.
Yeah.
Right. So in any case, like we said, I mean, even though Warner Brothers is not hitting their superhero movies out of the ballpark, it is doing good enough that they could continue. It allows them to keep tweaking it until they get it right.
Yeah. Although, like we said last week, they can't keep on cranking out subpar efforts, subpar products like Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad. Eventually, they'll notice this quality. I guess one thing that Suicide Squad and Batman vs. Superman have proved is that they have really good brands. These brands are making buttloads of money regardless of the quality. So they have the fans and they have the brand, but because of these two subpar efforts, they might be ruining the brand. Eventually, the audience will catch on that, hey, these films aren't any good.
Oh, right. I mean, right now, I think Warner Brothers superhero movies benefited from strong characters, right? Like Batman.
Yeah.
And Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. Right now, Suicide Squad has, of course, Will Smith and a wacky cast of characters.
Yeah.
And now once you get into the individual movies like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, will those characters hold up? I mean, that's the concern here right now, right?
Yeah. And what if Wonder Woman turned out crappy? You have 3 crappy movies in a row. That will probably turn audiences off on future offerings.
Well, I think it will be still big, but not as big.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like if Wonder Woman end up being disappointing or subpar quality.
Right, of course, and we heard rumors. I mean, actually not rumors, but there was this letter of some quote unquote insider who got word from people working on the movie that Wonder Woman is a mess. And they're trying to clean that up.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes, and we'll have to see what happens when that film opens, and it turns out to be another disappointment.
But hey, we have an abundance of superhero movies, so even if Warner Brothers offerings are not meeting expectations, we still have Marvel's superhero movies to carry us through.
Right. If they churn out more films like this, Chris Nolan might have to come back and rescue this whole DC universe.
Right. Superman Begins.
Again.
Again, right?
All right, let's move on to the number 2 film of the week, Sausage Party. It took in $15.3 million over the weekend. A drop off of 55% from its debut weekend last week. After 2 weeks of release, it has taken in $65 million at the box office at a budget of just $19 million. So a hugely profitable film for Sony. And Seth Rogan and his clan of comedians like Jonah Hill, buddy comedians, now has another genre to pour their talents into, the animation genre.
Right. 2 things stood out with the Sausage Party. Number 1, it's an R-rated animation. And number 2, it only cost around $20 million to make.
Right. Which is, in animation terms, pennies.
It is. It's like, wow, an animation that actually costs $20 million to make. I mean, I guess like Kubo and the 2 strings probably cost more, and it did.
$60 million.
It did cost more.
Yeah, and the stop motion, which is traditionally in terms of cost, the lesser of the in the genre, is the cheaper of the. Right. Because 3D animation is the most expensive. So, and Sausage Party costs even less than Kubo.
Right, and I couldn't imagine like a 3D movie costing less than what I mean before. The average cost for 3D animation was around what, 70 million?
Right? Yeah. Well, maybe let's put it at 100.
I'm talking about the Minions, Minion quality.
Yeah.
Those kind of budgets.
Yeah. So you have the Minions, which surprisingly, before Sausage Party is kind of at the lower end because, the Pixar and the DreamWorks animated films are in the 150 to 200 million range. Pixar films are in the 200 million range, and DreamWorks are, usually in the 150 million range. So, and Sausage Party. But the thing is, after it became a huge hit, there were reports that the animators were underpaid.
Oh, so that's where the cost savings came from.
Yeah, they weren't paid for overtime, and they were encouraged or demanded to work during the weekends. So
for free.
Yeah, for free. So we'll see. Obviously, because Sausage Party has been such a huge success, especially considering its lower budget. We're wondering if they can make this again at 19 million. I mean, with if they have to pay overtime and they have to pay for weekend work. We won't see this budget balloon to in the 50 million range for the sequel.
I suspect so, because I don't think it's possible. I mean, it is possible, right? Yeah. If you have people working for free. But
yeah. Well, they're not.
See how they could do it again for such.
They're not exactly working for free. It's just that they're salary workers, but they're not being paid for overtime, like weekend work or Yeah. So.
Right.
So they're definitely not paid for their overtime work. So we'll see what happens in the sequel.
Right. So pretty much the 19 million is not the actual true cost of the movie.
Yeah. They were cutting corners in terms of labor.
Right.
Paying for labor.
So they broke the law, pretty much.
Maybe.
Okay, so moving along to number 3 is one of the new releases last weekend. Speaking of Jonah Hill, War Dogs. It pulled in 14.3 million in its opening debut.
Mm-hmm. What number were we predicting? I know I was low on it.
You were about 6 million, and I said 20 to 25.
Oh, so it came in right in the middle.
Yeah, so we were both off on this. You didn't think it was that great, and I thought it would do better because it's a comedy, and Jonah Hill does have a following, and I think his comedies are funny. And it's directed by Todd Phillips, right? The guy who did the Hangover movies, and I thought that would have sway with the audience, but apparently not that big of a sway.
You know what? 14.3 million was, because I had such low expectations. Actually a lot better than I expected. Because these comedies or these films about the Middle East, with the exception of Zero Dark 30, usually, especially, comedies, have been doing pretty poorly. I think the last 3 have tanked. The fact that this did 14.3 is actually a lot better than I had expected. I'm not sure what the budget is for this.
Right. Yeah, you were right about comedies in the Middle East. We have like the Tina Fey drama comedy, the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Then we have the Bill Murray one. There's Rock the Casbah, which should make a blip at the box office.
Yeah, they
and
both
then
have
now we
been
have War
ignored.
Dogs.
Yeah. So this, compared to those 2, this is spectacular.
Yeah, and this is more mainstream too.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the budget is for this, but 14.3 million is actually not bad.
I suspect it's probably in the 30 to 40 million range for War Dogs.
You think so?
Yeah, it could be 50 on the higher end.
Should we take a look at War Dogs budget? Okay, on Wikipedia, it's listed as 40 million.
So it's about where I had it.
Yeah, so about where you had it. So 40 million, 14.3 million. Okay, if you compare it to the budget. Depending on how it holds up, it could get to 50, or it might end up doing around 35, which is pretty close to its budget. So, they might break even on this. In relation to its budget, this is an okay opening.
Okay opening and okay movie in regards to the reviews. It has kind of 58% on Rotten Tomatoes and B Cinema score, so not great.
Yeah, B Cinema score is kind of below average. Kind of an okay movie, okay reviews, okay box office, okay audience reaction.
Right, and judging by its theme and where it took place, I guess it's going to follow the rest of the comedies that take place in the Middle East. It's pretty much going to be ignored in the coming weeks.
Yeah, but if you compare it to the Tango Foxtrot, what?
Oh, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Okay, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Comedy, yeah.
And what's the other one?
Rock the Casbah.
Yeah, Rock the Casbah.
I mean, I'm surprised that with titles like these, nobody went out to watch them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, exactly. Compared to those 2, this is a huge success. Compared to those 2.
Right. Relatively speaking, yes.
Yeah, relatively speaking. At least this wasn't ignored, and people probably won't have trouble with this title.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't see this movie staying in theaters for long. Since it's R-rated and it doesn't have a huge opening, even though it has Todd Phillips, it has Jonah Hill, Miles Teller, it has the Hangover brand kind of tie-in.
Right.
But it didn't open big, and these movies tend to appeal for people who rush out in their first weekend.
Yeah. Audience reaction wasn't great, reviews weren't great, so this will probably experience, I think drop off in the 50% range, but we'll probably get the normal multiplier, which is about 3, so you'll probably make around maybe 35 to 40 million, which is about what it costs to make, and then we'll probably turn a profit on video. Not a huge profit, but they won't lose money.
Yeah, I think their primary target, if they make money in theaters, great, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not one of these movies that travel well overseas.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And like you say, where it's big, it's going to be on home video, where people are browsing through the catalog and they say, hey, Todd Phillips, Jonah Hill, Hangover.
Right.
And they're going to watch.
Yeah, right. All right, let's move on to the other new release of last weekend. At number 4, Kubo and the Two Strings. It made 12.6 million at a budget of 60 million. It's, like we said earlier, a stop motion animation from Laika, which is a studio that makes stop motion animated features, and they do them pretty well, very well. Their films tend to be well released, and they tend to do okay at the box office. And Kubo is one of the better reviewed films at 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. But 12.6 million opening is on the lower end of the studio's previous releases.
Just a tad. You had it at 25 million because you say you wanted to do well. I had it around where these movies, like a movie, usually open, which is about 15 million. And
so you're close.
Open a bit, like you said, less.
Yeah,
but it's still open, underperformed, and I expressed concern about this movie in the previous podcast, saying that the story has an Eastern focus.
Right.
Japanese.
About samurais and
Yes, samurais and all these mystical creatures, and that might not go over well with audiences over here.
yeah, that's too bad because Kubo is one of the better reviewed films of the year. So it's too bad that audiences aren't as tuned into this genre, the stop motion genre. 12.6 is kind of one of the lower end, and you kind of want them to make more of these films, but if the returns keep on diminishing, then we might not get more of these in the future.
Right, and for Kubo, I think they just put the sword in on the wrong character.
All right.
That's my feeling.
That's your feeling. Yeah.
If they want to bring in the audience.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe it'll do really well in Japan and in China.
Yeah, but like we said, here, domestic stop motion animation has a limit on, like you say, a cap on its earnings because for some reason people just aren't into stop motion.
Yeah, aren't that into stop motion because the last several have been very well reviewed, but box office wise, the cap seems to be around 70 or 80 million. That seems to be the cap on these films. They're not the 200 or 300 million that you see from the computer generated ones. Yeah, not sure what else to say other than like, hey, it's a great film that's not able to attract the audience that it deserves.
At least in theaters. At least in theaters. We have to see how it will do on video.
Yeah, that's the thing. These films have traditionally done well on video. So we'll see when it's all said and done and the numbers are crunched, whether or not we'll get more of these films. Because even Shaun the Sheep movie, it was super well reviewed. I think it barely made like 15 million. At the end, it ended up doing close to 20 million. But they're going ahead with a sequel because Lionsgate bought the rights for just a couple million. With marketing, they said their break-even point was something like 15 million. I think that's just for theater, and they probably made more money on video. And when it was all said and done, they were moving ahead with a sequel.
Yeah, and these movies are kind of territorial, right? I mean, I'm sure Shaun the Sheep did way better over in Britain, England, and other speaking countries than here. So I guess that's why they make most of the money over there. And Lionsgate just so happened. I mean, they're not expecting anything here. That's why Lionsgate got the rights for the release here for so cheap.
And I remember reading like Shaun the Sheep ended up making 100 million worldwide at a budget of just about 20 million. So we'll have to see where Kubo goes.
Yeah, so I think it's one of these movies where it's not going to do well here. I mean, if it made anything at all here, great, right? But I think this market's probably overseas and on all these secondary like streaming, video, home video, etc.
Yeah, 12.6 million compared to the rest of their previous films is kind of on the lower end, if not the lowest, right? Because I think Caroline and Paranorman and Foxtrot's open larger.
Yeah, Paranorman open to 14, Foxtrot's open to 17, and I think Kubo is the lowest opening so far. But the thing is like if I think it gotta make money, or else they wouldn't be cranking these movies out.
Well, their previous films made money. I don't think it's a huge amount, but this one looks like. Well, we'll have to see when it's all said and done. Who knows? Maybe this will have legs, but if not, one of the things in the industry is, I mean, the home video market is larger than the theatrical market, but studios never tell you how much their films make on video anymore. Nowadays, they just tell you the rankings, like which films rank number one in the home video market, but they stop reporting on the numbers.
Well, I think it's because they're seeing a decline in the home video market numbers. With all the streaming and online thing, and they don't want to report the numbers because it gives a signal that hey, our industry is not as the home video market at least on the DVD side that is declining.
Yeah, I'm not sure though. I mean, sure it's declining, but I wonder if it has more to do with they don't want to let people know, because of accounting issues. Unlike the box office, it gives them an edge to say whether or not a film has been successful.
Oh, so they're going to engage in Hollywood accounting, pull a sausage party, and not pay royalties.
Yeah, but I thought it's kind of odd that they stopped reporting on those numbers. They used to report on these numbers. It's still not as well reported as box office, but At least you used to see, that a certain film made a certain amount on home video. It's interesting that when they report on how much they have to write off with a film, they base it mostly on how it's doing theatrically rather than, hey, we don't have the home video numbers yet. Which is a huge chunk of the business.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, like, how they report these.
I think a lot of it,
right? They have
a lot of it has to do with, they can do these write-offs, for the quarterly reports, and then if they can report that, hey, this movie is losing money, then in business terms, I guess they can, they can have, I guess, better write-offs, and they don't have to report that they have a profit and be taxed on it until, later.
Yep.
But there's a certain misreporting when they say, hey, this movie, we have to do a 100 million write-off on this movie, but it doesn't include home video, which is the biggest chunk of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like maybe they're just speaking for that quarter. Say, okay, this quarter we're missing out on our targets.
Yeah.
And then the next quarter, oh, well, huge profits. Yay, bonuses.
Right.
That's how it goes.
Right. Plus, I guess it's probably hard to report on because, you have to wait, another 6 months to report on how it's doing on home video.
Right, and it goes on. It keeps going, right? You just don't say, oh, it's going to, these DVDs and, online streaming keep coming in. The money keep coming in from those. Whereas theatrical, right? There's a cutoff date.
Right, yeah. Well, I think we digress enough.
Oh, yeah, we digress and spoke a lot about finances and not enough about Kubo and the two strings.
Right.
Which hopefully we'll see more in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Moving along to number 5 is another new release, Ben-Hur, the remake of I'm not sure, it's a new take on, I guess, the Ben-Hur movie. It pulled in 11.3 million over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Budget is 100 million. So yeah, it's a huge bomb.
Right, and it fully reviewed, 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. What numbers were we predicting?
Well, you said 10, so you're right there. And I thought that it would do probably 20 to 25, mainly because, hey, it's a big action movie. It has Morgan Freeman and, a couple minor actors, but, chariot races, special effects. But I guess that didn't go over well with the audiences. Yeah, and they're in trouble when I read reports saying that the studio was marketing this movie toward the faith-based crowd. So you were right there.
Yeah, they got their casting reversed because, they cast Morgan Freeman. He's the guy that they're marketing, but he's playing a supporting role. They should have cast in the inverse manner where they should have casted someone huge in these leading roles. But the biggest name they got is Morgan Freeman, who's playing a side character.
Yeah, the wise black guy, the mentor role.
Yeah, and like we said last week, this is the kind of film that needs a movie star. In the main characters, I think Morgan Freeman has a certain draw, but then he's playing a side character rather than a main character. And the guy that they got playing Ben-Hur isn't a movie star.
Yeah, you barely heard of him, right? Jack Houston, I believe?
Yeah, he's not Charlton Heston. He doesn't have that screen presence. Doesn't have that draw.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, even though they have the chariot races, right? I think we move beyond chariot races. We have the Fast and Furious movies for the, these outlandish car chases, right?
Right?
And then we have all these special effects movies with these huge monsters destroying the city and what have you. Mm-hmm. And all we got in Ben-Hur are chariot races. So I think we need more in a sword and sandal movies, and I don't think like Exodus, Gods and Kings, that Ridley Scott movie, mm-hmm. It didn't do that well either, and it's directed by Ridley Scott.
Right. Part of it is probably like what you said, but at the same time, you can tell with Ridley Scott film that they at least have Christian Bale.
Yes.
They at least have a movie star, whereas this they have no movie star to anchor the film. They got Timur Bekmambetov, the guy who did the Warner films, and he's the right guy to direct a $100 million film, but they don't have the star that can draw in the crowd.
Well, also, no one goes to watch a Timur film. They don't know who he is.
If you're making a $100 million action film, Timur Bekmambetov.
Let's call him Timur.
Yeah. It's the right guy to direct this film, but the whole thing is, they don't have a movie star.
Right. That's true. And Timur is not there yet as a director where people, just go out to watch his movie on his name alone.
Yeah. He's not Steven Spielberg.
Even if it is Steven Spielberg nowadays, they're not going to go out and watch his movies.
Yeah, or James Cameron.
I think James Cameron is the only guy out there right now. that people would just go and watch his films on his name alone.
Yeah. But another needless remake, Ben-Hur, right?
Needless remake, and mainly because they didn't add any better than the previous movies.
Yeah, I guess one thing you can see with modern special effects, again, the sets could be grander, but there's not much more in terms of the interior ways. There's not more you can do. I mean, I guess special effects can help it a bit, but seems like like we said last week, with these kind of films, is more about the practical effects, more about the realism, the stunts, and not about the CGI.
Mm-hmm. I think for a film like this, more importantly, it's about the people, right?
Yeah, it's about the action. Yeah, it's more about the star power.
Right. I mean, the story is pretty much like his relations with his brother, who betrayed him, sent him to become a slave, and then him coming back for revenge. It's not really about the chariot race, even though the chariot race is kind of like the highlight of the film. It's where the ending is how they resolve their differences, but there's still the rest of the movie, and it's mainly about their interactions.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that. This is an action movie, and you need an action star. You need someone with the kind of presence of Charlton Heston. Like, you need Vin Diesel in the Fast and Furious films. You need The Rock. You need that kind of screen presence to anchor this kind of action movie, not Jack Houston or Toby Kebbell.
Yeah, no disagreement there. I mean, I think they made a miscalculation saying that, hey, our special effects are good enough that we don't really need an A-list star.
Yeah, they're thinking they got an A-list director. They figure they got Morgan Freeman to give the film some credibility. And they think with those two, they can get, enough investment, but they're missing a movie star.
Oh, that's true. Well, like I said, I mean, when the special effects is the movie star, then you have something there. But I don't think the special effect here is enough.
Yeah, all right. I think we spoken enough about Ben-Hur than it deserves.
Yeah, right. Even though it opened only 11 million, we expect a huge drop off in the second weekend.
Yeah. This film will have trouble getting to 30 million.
Okay, moving along to number 6 is Pete's Dragon. In its second weekend, it pulled in 11.3 million, and experienced only a lowest drop off, only a 47%.
That's larger than I expected, actually. The film's budgeted at 65 million. It's decently well reviewed. It's a family film, and it didn't open huge. Family films tend to hold up better. They tend to drop off in the 35% range. So this 47% is kind of higher than I had expected last week. So yeah, it's not holding up nearly as well for a well-reviewed family film.
Yeah, but you have to know that school's back. So do you think that there might be less family audience out there, or that they may want to check it out later?
That's true. That school is back. That is true. But regardless, these films, family films, especially well-reviewed ones, even the well-reviewed ones tend to hold up better. Unless they open to hundreds of millions. Even those tend to hold up a little bit better than this.
This is a very weak link, and this is the second Disney film that has a dinosaur/dragon that didn't perform well. Yeah. Like, what's the last one? Dinosaur? Good Dinosaur? Yeah. Pixar's Good Dinosaur didn't do that well. Their lowest grossing film in their library. And again, like Pete's Dragon, had decent reviews, not great reviews, but decent reviews. But both have underperformed. Right. So maybe kids are not that into dragons. I don't know. Or dinosaurs. It's hard to say. I mean, Jurassic World blew the list off. Yeah, I'm making a very weak link here. So this Jurassic World, there is what's that DreamWorks dragon franchise? How to Train Your Dragon, but those have done decently well, though, relatively well. After Jurassic World, you would think that hey, kids would are up for even more dinosaur films, but Good Dinosaur didn't disappoint, and now Pete's Dragon disappointed. So not sure what it is. Reviews have been decent. Maybe there's just too many good family films over the summer. Like Secret Life of Pets, Zootopia, The Jungle Book, and Pete's Dragon in comparison just doesn't seem nearly as appealing. What I feel is that there might be too many dragon films for family audiences, and I think that's they're saying, another dragon movie, because after How to Train Your Dragon, the new movies, they might not want to watch another one, because I think we have The Secret Life of Pets, we have Zootopia, all doing well. I mean, family films, if they're good, tend to do well, right? But maybe there are too many of these movies. I don't think so, though. A particular subject.
I don't think so. You know why?
Okay.
You have Secret Life of Pets and Zootopia, both about animals, both doing record-breaking business over the summer, both released within a couple months of each other. These dragon films have been years apart.
Okay. All right. Just throwing out there, maybe the appetite for dragons are not that big.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Furry animals, yeah, make as much as you want, but dragons, maybe not.
Hey, they did make, the dragon furry.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, yeah, so maybe pets, smaller pets are in, but bigger pets, like dinosaurs and dragons, not in right now.
All right. Maybe they couldn't relate because, you can relate to dogs, cats, rabbits.
Yeah.
Dragons, not so much.
Not sure what it is. One of these days we'll figure out why.
All right. Moving along to number 7 is Bad Moms. It pulled in $8 million over the weekend. So far, it grossed $85 million domestically, and it's already in its 4th weekend. It's a lowest drop-off of 29%.
Yeah, of all the films in the top 10, it's holding up the best. And it's been holding up really well. In the previous weekends, the drop-off have been like high teens to low 20s. It's the sleeper hit of the summer, at a budget of just $20 million. Like I said in previous weeks, I'm not the audience for it, and my prediction was way off. I think you were closer to how it's doing.
Well, I think it just goes along the trend of R-rated female comedies.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's being served right now with these movies.
Yeah, I think it also helps that of all the films in the top 10, it's the only film targeted at women. I mean, you look at the films in the top 10, what other ones do you see that's targeted towards that demographic, specifically at that demographic?
Right, you're right.
All right, let's move on to number 8. Jason Bourne did about $8 million over the weekend. After 4 weeks, it grossed about $141 million at a budget of $120 million. The worldwide figure is at $279 million. It's gonna make money, but not as much as the previous films in the franchise.
Right. It didn't perform as well as the Matt Damon Bourne movies.
Mm-hmm.
It did better than the Jeremy Renner Bourne movie, right?
Yeah.
The problem, really, I guess, is that they waited probably too long to make another Jason Bourne movie with Matt Damon. And I guess people might have moved on from this.
Well, they waited too long, and there are just too many sequels over the summer. Way too many. And like the rest of them, are disappointed in terms of the box office. All right, let's move on to number 9. I mentioned previously The Secret Life of Pets. They made about $5.8 million, holding up well at a drop off of just 36%. And it has grossed $347 million so far at a budget of just $75 million. Worldwide, it has grossed $674 million. So a huge hit for Universal. And another franchise for them.
Yeah, if they decide to turn these things out. They have the Minions.
Yeah.
They have Despicable Me.
Yep.
And now The Secret Life of Pets.
Right.
And what else do they have?
Well, those are the biggest ones.
Yeah, they have the Dr. Seuss movies too, I think. But I don't think those did as well.
Yeah, not as well. All right, do you want to take number 10?
All right, rounding out the top 10 is Florence Foster Jenkins. It's the Meryl Streep movie. It pulled in $4.3 million in its second weekend. I have nothing else to say about this movie other than it's a Meryl Streep movie. It also stars Hugh Grant and directed by Stephen Frears. It's pretty much a art house movie that's being released wide.
Yeah, and if you look at it as an art house film, it's doing decent business and it's holding up well. It'll probably go on to gross, $25 million, and if it continues to hold up really well, I'm not sure if it can do maybe even $30 million. But considering it's an indie film that opened wide, it's not bad.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to see Meryl Streep in an action movie. Meryl, you've done all you can in dramas, comedies. I want to see you in an action movie.
Wait, isn't she in the Expendables?
If that ever gets made, I don't know.
So you might get your wish.
Is Meryl Streep? No. I think that was
Sigourney Weaver.
The one in the alien, Sigourney Weaver.
I think they were also targeting her for a role.
Perhaps, but I haven't heard anything about that movie ever since they announced it. So I'm not sure if it's even getting made or not. But in any case, what I'm saying is I want to see Meryl Streep in an action movie.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Like Helen Mirren, she took in the action route in the I think Red movies.
Yeah.
With Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruce Willis and John Malkovich. An interesting mix of Oscar caliber actors.
Yeah, the real Expendables.
Yeah. That you wouldn't expect in in an action movie. I mean, it's interesting, but at the same time, there's also that, like, if Meryl Streep does an action movie, almost like if, like you said previously, when you're at the end of the ropes of your franchise, if they're in space type of thing. It's just, it becomes too gimmicky.
Yeah, but once in a while, just shake things up,
Yeah.
just for laughs.
Yeah,
I think people would watch it.
Yeah, that's true. Just for laughs, just for fun, and people will totally see it that way.
Mm-hmm, right.
All right, should we move on to the opening films?
Yeah, let's go to the opening since we finish off the top 10. Okay, we have, again, 3 new releases this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We have the horror film Don't Breathe, the action drama Hands of Stone, and hey, look who's back, Mechanic Resurrection with Jason Statham.
I mean, the first film didn't, the original, The Mechanic, it was well reviewed. It didn't do gangbusters at the box office. It did Jason Statham business, which is, it made about 29 million. And worldwide, it did 62 million at a budget of 40 million. So I guess it must have cleaned house on video that they're making a sequel. Mechanic Resurrection sounds so generic. I wonder if Resurrection, how many sequels have we heard of with Resurrection in the title? Whenever they can't come up with a title for a sequel, they just stick in Resurrection and call it a day.
All right. I mean, video games, they used it a lot.
Yeah. Isn't Resurrection in one of the Alien films?
I believe that was, Alien Resurrection, yes.
And isn't it also in Resurrection in one of the Resident Evil movies?
I don't think so.
Well, Retribution. Okay, but anyway, there's nothing that's more generic than sticking Resurrection in the title of your film.
Well, they could go with The Mechanic 2.
Yeah, that's true.
But in any case, Jason Statham is back
in theaters
in one of his movies,
mm-hmm.
Action movies, where he pretty much plays the same characters. Like
mm-hmm.
This dude with a set of rules or whatever, what have you,
mm-hmm.
doing action-y things.
Yeah.
And this time he's joined by Jessica Alba, Tommy Lee Jones, and surprisingly Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, a pretty decent mix of actors. Jessica Alba, with how well she's doing and as a businesswoman, she can probably fund this entire film by herself.
Well, here's my take, is that once you end up in a Jason Statham movie,
mm-hmm.
you're no longer at that level.
That's true.
Where, you're an in-demand actor or actress.
Yeah, Jennifer Lopez was ended up in a Jason Statham movie. But she ended up doing fine afterwards, though.
Well, she was, but she's always this lower-level actress, made for video thrillers.
Well, Jennifer Lopez was once, an A-list actress.
And then she ended up in a Jason Statham movie.
Jessica Alba was never a A-list actress.
Well, but she was in larger movies, like the Fantastic Four movies and others.
That's true.
And now she's playing the woman in distress, which anyone could have played.
Yeah, sure. I'm curious to see how this turns out. But, with Lionsgate, probably not good. The first Mechanic was at least well reviewed, a decent thriller. This a solid box office, not gangbusters, but solid Jason Statham numbers. So I'm curious to see how this would do. Will this end up like the recent Jason Statham films that barely did enough, that shouldn't have been released in theaters, but probably should have went direct to video? Well, we'll see.
All his movies kind of like that. Well, I expect this movie to be kind of the same, follow his pattern.
like the recent pattern. If it's the recent pattern, we'll probably do like 15 million tops when it's all said and done.
Oh no, I think this will do a bit better. I guess this is maybe because of who else is in it. Even though Michelle Yeoh has just like a barely a glimpse in the trailer.
Yeah.
I think
Tommy Lee Jones plays the bad guy.
Yes, that's kind of weird casting there, but I think he's just looking for something to do.
Yeah. So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking maybe 5 to 10. Maybe with 10 being where it is.
Go be more specific because we're talking about.
Okay, let's do 7.
Right,
okay, 7 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. 7 million.
Okay, so we're pretty in agreement with this movie. I think mainly because Jason Statham. The thing is like, will he get a resurrection? Right? It's just like the his what is his that other franchise I was in with him driving Transport. Yeah, Transport.
Oh, Transporter. The Transporter.
Yeah, Transporter. So they did a reboot of the movie with some other guy in it, and it didn't do that well, right? And now they have a Jason Statham movie doing his best impression of Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movie.
Right.
And I don't think it's gonna go over that well, because it's Jason Statham.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the best actor out there. He was pretty good in Spy. With Melissa McCarthy playing,
he's a decent actor. In the indie films, he's pretty good. I think because of the action films, he became, Jason Statham, and it seems like you can only watch so many Jason Statham movies, just like you can only watch so many Jean-Claude Van Damme movies or so many Steven Seagal movies, if they don't change up that storyline, the plot,
Right. So I guess that's why he's back after spending time on home video. He's back in theaters. And hopefully people will come out and watch this movie.
Yeah. The 7 million opening is telling him to go back to home video.
Yeah, that's true. And also remember, like I say, we have to also remember the time we're in, the month we're in. We're getting at the tail end of summer. And these movies are kind of gonna do lower at the box office.
That's true. You know why they're releasing it in theaters? It's because his previous 2 films, Furious 7 and Spy.
Oh, okay.
Have done so well. He wasn't the main character; he was a supporting character, and they have done so well. They're probably hoping that will raise his profile a bit. Enough that a film like The Mechanic can make 30 to 40 million.
Right. They're hoping Jessica Alba and Tom Lee Jones has enough star power to say, hey, this is an ensemble film like the Fast and Furious movies.
No, I'm thinking they're just thinking, hey, he was in Furious 7, he was in Spy, both huge hits. His profile hopefully will have been raised a little bit by those 2 films. Enough, to push this film back to previous Jason Statham levels, which is movies that make in the 25 to 40 million range. If The Mechanic does those numbers when its theatrical one is done, that's pretty good.
True, and we and Lionsgate will find out.
Yeah.
Come this weekend.
Although both of us are, since we have it at 7 million, or expecting it not to meet those modest numbers.
Right.
All right, let's move on.
Expectations are low.
Yeah.
Okay, Hands of Stone, the boxing movie starring Usher and Edgar Ramirez.
Right.
It has an interesting trailer, and it's not about boxing.
Yeah, it's about the whole corruption in boxing, like
I'm saying is that some of the trailer, a lot of it is focused on Edgar Ramirez and de Armas, bedroom stuff. Also Usher and his significant other.
Oh,
bedroom stuff.
Oh, I didn't notice. I just see it as the one that I saw on TV during the Olympics. And
well, you should check out the R-rated trailer.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen the R-rated trailer then.
Yeah, the R-rated trailer is where's that. So there's that. It's just like it doesn't focus that much on boxing. It's just focused on
on the bedroom scenes.
Bedroom scenes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, a lot of it's on the bedroom scenes. So.
That kind of boxing movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, the movie is about Sugar Ray Leonard.
Oh, is it?
Okay, according to Wikipedia, Hands of Stone is a 2016 American Panamanian biographical sports film about the career of Panamanian former professional boxer Roberto Duran. And his fight with, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah, from the trailer, it seems like it's, about the involvement of, the gambling, the mob, the mobsters, the gangsters behind the scenes that are betting and affecting the match. So it seems like it's about that whole world. And it's about, I guess it's about how he beat, Sugar Ray Leonard, and then during the rematch, he just, I guess he just didn't want to fight.
He quit, yeah.
Which is an interesting premise, but I'm not sure if from the trailer, I didn't see that in the trailer. That's what I thought was most interesting about it, but it wasn't emphasized in the trailer. But I guess how it now makes sense. I guess he just didn't feel like being a part of that whole corrupt boxing world. And the previous film was that Jake Gyllenhaal boxing movie that did typical Jake Gyllenhaal box office. What was that one?
Southpaw.
Yeah, Southpaw. So that did, 35 to 40 million total. This one doesn't even star. Sure, Robert De Niro's in it, but his star power has been lacking as of late.
Well, he's playing a minor character here.
Yeah.
He's not the star here.
Right. And, Edgar Ramirez, isn't a big box office draw. But they have decent actors supporting him, like Alan Falcon, John Turturro. I guess Usher will bring in his fans. Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know, the trailer seems it seems kind of generic, like you heard about boxing and you heard about the gambling and you heard about the mobsters behind the scenes and, the gangsters behind the scenes, and you hear about that whole underworld. In that respect, it looked a little generic to me. I haven't seen the film yet, but there are 2 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and both of them are good, and they're from Variety and Roger Moore, not the Roger Moore, but he used to work for one of the newspapers. I think the Sun Sentinel.
Yeah. They're one of the Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando Sentinel. Yeah, it's getting good reviews from both of them. So hey, who knows? Maybe it'll turn out to be a decent generic boxing movie.
A decent generic. Okay, yeah, well, anyway, I don't think they emphasize the boxing as much in this movie. And like you say, the actors are not people who draw people in. Usher is, of course, the musician.
But like you said, if they have
dabbles in acting.
Yeah, if they have to throw out an R-rated movie focused on, the bedroom scenes, then, they're not too confident about the boxing aspects of it.
No, and also the problem is who the heck remembers Robert Duran, the guy who Ramirez plays, right? Or Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, those are like
people remember
from way back then.
Well, people remember Sugar Ray Leonard.
Sugar Ray Jr. There's Sugar Ray and there's his son.
The 1980 Sugar Ray should be the Sugar Ray Leonard that's the boxer that everyone refers to.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got my Sugar Ray confused then maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know my boxing that well. But like I say, this one is focused on not Sugar Ray Leonard, right? But it's focused on the guy
he fights.
Roberto Duran.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy he fights. I mean, he's the Panamanian boxer who took the belt from Sugar Ray Leonard. That's the guy who the movie's focused on.
Yeah, right.
So it's not a Sugar Ray Leonard movie. It's a Roberto Duran movie.
Right.
So in that sense, like I said, who remembers Roberto Duran, right?
Yeah, he's definitely not as well known as Sugar Ray Leonard. Yeah. So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking 5.
Yeah, same here.
Wow, from your thing, I thought you would have it higher.
No. I think the premise is interesting, but I'm saying like Edgar Ramirez, none of these actors are actors who can draw a huge audience. And, even Jake Gyllenhaal, Southpaw, only managed to do, Jake Gyllenhaal numbers.
Right. But you also mentioned Usher's fan, and I thought that would add a couple million to the movie.
Musicians, even like 50 Cent, they're not huge draws in the film business.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Usher's peaked years ago.
Right. Yeah, even Mariah Carey. Sure, you have, like Miley Cyrus. When they're doing their concert films, they make money. But when they're in a movie that depends on their acting, those films tend not to do so well.
Right. Like I wouldn't go to an Arnold Schwarzenegger concert.
Yeah, exactly.
For example.
Exactly.
All right.
It might be very interesting, but I'm not sure interesting in the right way.
Right.
Arnold Schwarzenegger concert.
Right. You probably wouldn't become a fan of his afterwards. Okay, we have our final movie, the horror movie Don't Breathe. It's directed by Fede Alvarez, who did the 2013 Evil Dead movie.
The remake, right?
Yes.
Which did really well. The trailer looks pretty good. Like, the premise is pretty interesting. It has an interesting premise.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I thought the premise was interesting. I mean,
I thought it was just confused.
Oh, okay. I thought the premise is interesting. Not something that's done before. A couple of teenagers try to rob this old blind man and got stuck in their house. This old blind man turned out to be, Stephen Lang. Not a guy I want to be trapped in a house with.
All right, and he's channeling Jason Statham in the movie.
Yeah, as a bad guy.
Martial arts.
Well, I'm not sure about martial arts.
He can kick ass.
He can kick ass.
Well, he kicked ass in the movie, right?
Not a guy you want to rob, even if he is blind.
Right.
So I thought it was interesting that way. You get trapped in a house by this tough blind guy, and he's coming after you.
Well, you know what? Don't Breathe follows a long line of stupid teen movies where, hey, if they just get out of the house, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
But they didn't, for some reason or another.
But the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, 17 reviews so far, 88%.
Okay.
For these films, it's really good. It's better than really good. These films tend to be trashed by critics, and if they get 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's like the holy grail. But this is like 88%.
And I suspect the reviews will drop later on, so we'll see.
They'll probably drop later on, but with horror films this early in the process is very good.
Okay, so what's your number?
These fillers have been doing pretty well. The only thing I wonder is there room for another one to do well? This one's exceptionally well reviewed. You know what? I'll go with 15.
15. Okay, I'm gonna disagree with you there and go way low with 5 again.
Okay.
Because I guess from the trailer it's doesn't stand out. Like 3 teens trying to rob a blind guy. Come on,
Hey, but it's Stephen Lang. He's not just
any
old blind
guy. I'll give you that. But I'm gonna go with 5 because maybe other people will see the movie the same way as I do.
Right, and the reviews have been exceptional, so we'll see.
Okay.
Although another point on your side is I haven't heard of this film until now, so which means the awareness isn't there.
That's true too. And horror movies right now is not doing that well outside of the James Wan one.
They have been on the downslide, but the last 2 or 3 have done decent, like like The Shallow or the James Wan one, Lights Out.
Lights Out.
Yeah, so
there's The Boy.
Yeah, The Boy.
And then The Witch, right? And The Witch.
Yeah. These have done decent, like they make like 40 to 50 million, except Lights Out is doing even better than that. So 15 million is around it would be along those numbers.
Okay. A point in your favor is that August and on are the domain of these horror movies, right? They release these horror movies and they tend to do well.
Yeah, sure. So we'll see.
All right. So that's the end of our podcast, and we'll come back next week to see how we did our predictions on the new releases.
All right. See you guys next week.